Hey, hello, howdy, how you doing? 4 months ago, a raven yeeted me into Valheim, and since then, I've been busy. I learned the basics of combat, fought Dear Zeus, built the world's dumpiest compound, fought Treebeard, mined only the very tops of dozens of copper nodes, much to everyone's dismay, did battle with Amy Slayton, and in the process of all of that, died over and over and over again. Welcome back to Valheim's hardcore mode. Combat is set to the hardest difficulty, allowing most mobs in the game to kill you before you even know they exist. Death penalty has been changed from dropped items on death never despawn to you lose all items and skills permanently, requiring you to start back from level 1 on every single skill when you die. Raids are set to more from the standard, and you can't use portals while bosses are active, meaning if I die to a boss, not only do I lose my inventory and all of my skills, but I have to craft a boat and sail it all the way back instead of running through a portal for round 2. At the end of my first 100 days, I was hunted down by a pack of wolves, losing all my best gear, before respawning into a raid, where I experienced a bout of panic akin to sleep paralysis, and subsequently lost everything I had on me in back-to-back deaths, leaving me to effectively restart from the Bronze Age. Here's a quick refresher. Well, there goes like 20 roots, resulting in me dying a third time, losing whatever gear I just crafted, along with all of the materials used to craft that gear, including a second root harness, and now I'm gonna go climb into an oven. Considering I've gone from prepping silver armor all the way back to the Bronze Age, not only do I need to start mining copper and tin again like the days of old, but I need to practically repeat the entirety of the iron grind. Something I'm not particularly looking forward to. But, here we are. First objective on the to-do list, mine copper. Now, the majority of the feedback I received on the first video was centered around mining. I'm not kidding, I probably got close to 200 comments between that video and the multiplayer stuff, so I hear you, and I raise you the ability to learn. By kiting a troll up to the copper nodes, you can use their ground pound attack to deal a ton of damage to the node, without needing to do much of the mining yourself. Well, that is, until you get a 1-star Draugr archer to come wandering over who wipes the troll in like 3 shots. Never thought I'd be using this base again, but this is where I'll be living for the next several days. No joke, I spent the next 2 days doing nothing but mining copper and tin. I know, super exciting stuff. But I do have another tip to show off. Not only can you use trolls to mine for you, but copper nodes continue under the surface. Actually, most of the node is hidden under the surface. What you see up top is just the tip of the iceberg, figuratively and literally. When I wasn't busy stacking tin and copper though, I was lighting up the trolls in the region. That way, if nothing else, I could rock some troll armor instead of trying to craft more copper sets. And when I wasn't fighting trolls, I was busy running from my inner demons. But at the end of the day, it all led back to mining. After spending all night moving gear back through the portal and dropping it off at my base, I began sailing back home with all of the raw materials I'd mined up, including 30 iron that I had left here last time. After finally making it back to base on the morning of day 105, I got to work filling my smelters with tin, copper, and iron. I'm not planning to make a full set of anything with the material, but rather a hodgepodge of equipment that'll at least help me with getting back through the swamps again, considering I'll need hundreds of iron scraps to fully recover. That being said, there was no shortage of work to be done. For starters, while I did manage to mine up a few stacks of copper, I was short on tin. sending me back to the west coast of my starter island in order to mine tin off the shoreline. Obviously, with all the materials needing to be smelted down, the process continued into day 106. So while that was going on, I crafted some armor upgrades and began making runs back into the forest in order to gather more supplies like blueberries and ancient seeds. To end the day, I crafted a ton of bronze and crafted some more tools like a cultivator, bronze axe, and a stag breaker. Going into my third day of smelting copper and tin and iron down, I was running out of shit to do around the base. So, after replanting a bunch of carrots and turnips, I stockpiled some food and set off to take on the Elder again to loot another swamp key. Now that I have the swamp key, I can get back to farming iron. Just, gotta wait for the metal bars to finish up so I can craft an iron pickaxe. So to kill some time while I waited around the base, I got to work crafting a ton of food with whatever I had in my storage chests. I also went ahead and set up some fermenters to craft more healing meads. I'd like to learn how to make a blood bag farm, so maybe I'll take a few minutes to do that in the future as well. Outside of that though, I crafted another 25 bronze bars and used them to upgrade my armor, bringing me from 31 to 39. Finally, on the morning of day 109, I was able to finish off smelting my materials and use the iron bars to craft a new iron pickaxe. Finally, I can return to the swamps, after upgrading a stag breaker, of course. You know what? I completely forgot that a Surtling spawner was sitting over by bone mass. I want to come back to that in a bit. But for now, there's other things that are gonna take priority, like fighting abominations to get my chest piece back. With that out of the way, it's back into the crypts in search of more iron. But, in case you've forgotten from like 4 days ago, it can't be transported through any portals, so I've got to sail all the way back over to the new swamp biome and secure the boat over there. Listen, I know I could just take the sailing materials, go through the portal, and then rebuild the longboat and save a ton of time. But there's just something about sailing in this game that I can't get away from. Second to combat, it might be my favorite thing in the game. So while I sail back to the swamps, let's get the ad read out of the way. We just moved to our new house, and settling in has been a nightmare. There's totes and boxes everywhere, condiments are in the drawer next to the cats are in the attic, and to top it all off, while on our way over here with the moving van, Factor did that weird action movie tunnel car switcheroo thing with the moving van and replaced all of my essentials with Factor meals. These bad boys are insanely quick and easy to make and come in these pre-packaged containers that look like this. All you need to do is throw them in the microwave for 2 minutes and then you're good to go. Kinda hard to mess that up. On top of their normal menu, which is extensive to say the least, Factor Meals just released their healthiest additions yet, with over 80 weekly rotating meals to choose from, more than doubling the size of their original menu. Speaking of menus, Factor Meals also offers all of these meal plans that are developed by registered dietitians, such as high protein, keto friendly, and GLP-1 balanced options. It should go without saying, but all of these meals are portioned out correctly as well, so if you're trying to work through your 5th diet of the year, everything is easily trackable for you. It's honestly been one of the best products I've been sponsored by. Me and my wife love them, and I think you will too. To try some meals out for yourself, all you need to do is head to factor75.com or click the link below and use code PREDZFB50 to get 50% off plus free breakfast for 1 year. That's code PREDZFB50 at factor75.com to get 50% off plus free breakfast for 1 year. Honestly, the breakfast alone should get you on board with this. I've seen and lived what Americans eat for breakfast, and I promise this is so much better. Thank you to Factor Meals for sponsoring this video, and now, back to finding Shrek. It took all of day 110 to make it back here, which was actually a lot quicker than I was anticipating. Primarily due to the fact that I was able to cut through a split between biomes that I'd originally sailed all the way around the first time. On top of that, I found a nice little spot to dock just around the corner from the Bone Mass portal. So instead of having to run all the way east to the original spot, I can just go to this in the south. Finally, on day 111, I pushed back into the swamps and knocked out my first crypt. I will say though, this feels significantly easier now that I have actual food to match the biome. Like, I'm not going in with 80 health and 30 defense. I do also think that bronze is the best armor choice for the swamps, at least with hardcore mode, since even with heavily upgraded troll armor, I was still getting two-shotted by most enemies. But now, I'm able to tank most damage, block the rest, and pummel through my enemies. To compensate for the fact that iron can't go through portals, I built a chest to leave it all in so that I could still freely, go back and forth between the base and the swamps through the portals. As I was making my way back to the portal though, I noticed a shit ton of loot just sitting in the water, leading me to discover a ton of dead Surtlings having dropped coal and cores. And I'll save you the breath, yes, I want to turn that into a farm. This obviously bled into the next few days, with more crypts and taking on a few spawners in the area to optimize the future Surtling farm as much as possible. Another easy day, and another day of walking away with tons of iron. It wasn't until day 114 that I became acutely aware of a major problem. Where the fuck is my boat? I'd originally docked it along the southern coast of the swamp biome, but it's not here anymore. And not only is it not here, but none of the dropped materials are here either. My best guess is that the leeches in the water destroyed the longboat and the materials either sunk to the bottom of the murky water, or a bunch of fucking Grey Dwarfs boarded it and sailed it off into the sunset. But it's definitely one of those two. Either way, I'm shit out of luck. So, it's back to the drawing board. Using 10 of my 12 iron bars, I made another set of 100 nails. I've got 40 ancient bark and fine wood. Now, all I need is 5 more deer hide. Easy enough. With a new longboat placed, I spent the rest of day 114 delivering iron from the chest into the longboat storage before setting sail back home that night. The ride back to base was pretty brutal. I spent most of my time sailing directly into the wind because this is Valheim and tailwind is a luxury that no one is allowed to have. Instead, my trip looked more like this. Honestly, still better than a carnival cruise, so no real complaints here. And after making it back to base on the evening of 1:15, I spent the rest of the day making runs to and from the boat for all of the iron sitting in storage. This carried over into the following day, which I guess I should have expected, considering it's hundreds of iron that I can only move like 20 at a time for. If you would have told me at the beginning of this journey that I'd be spending multiple days doing nothing but moving resources to and from a boat, I would have laughed in your face. Now it's just become my life. Okay, so we've got a ton of iron now. Cool, what's next? Back to the mountains? I'll do you one better. How about turning that Surtling spawner into a farm? The morning of day 117, I grabbed some tools and dove back through the portal into the swamplands yet again. Surtling farms are incredibly easy to make in the swamps. See, these fucking assholes all walk around like they have rabies and die as soon as they come into contact with water. So all you need to do is take a pickaxe and start whacking the ground all around the flame spout. It should look something like this when it's all said and done. Maybe with a bit less trees, but you get the point. Okay, cool, hard part's over. Now it's time for the tree house. To do this, I watched one of Kaisen's guides where he built ladders scaling up one of the massive ancient trees that you can't cut down. So I imitated that for my setup because I'm unoriginal, and if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I ended up going a bit bigger than his build, but that's mainly because I got distracted with placing the foundations correctly. This continued into day 118 until finally, as the sun set, I wrapped up my little makeshift fort. It's not the prettiest base in the world by any means, but it'll get the job done all the same. So in the, 40 minutes it's taken to build this shitty contraption, this is the loot from all the Surtlings that have spawned in during that time. Not bad, right? But we can do better. So instead of doing anything productive, I stripped down to nothing, boxed myself in, and posted up here overnight. No, not in the game, in real life. I left this running from around 8 p.m. until about 7 a.m. the following morning. Why is that important information? Well, because loot in Valheim, to my knowledge, doesn't despawn if it's within your proximity. At least, most loot. I'm sure there's an outlier or two, but items like Surtling cores and coal, generally speaking, don't. So, over the course of about 11 or 12 hours, while I played with my daughter, went to bed, woke up, made breakfast, showered, and sat down at my desk, it's just been stacking loot. So, you want to see the haul? Alright, not horrible, but I'm gonna be honest, I was expecting way more. I'm not sure if there's an asset cap or something, but I will note that as soon as I picked up a few hundred coal and some Surtling cores, the Flame On guys started respawning, so I guess don't be like me. This farm is probably best utilized in 30-minute to 1-hour increments. Go post up here while you make dinner or something, and then come back and take your loot, repeat as needed. I think running it overnight was a bit overkill, and probably not all that worth it. Don't get me wrong, the haul was still great. I'm not gonna have to worry about coal for a while, really ever again, and I think I have enough Surtling cores to make as many portals as my heart desires. I think I was just expecting more along the lines of like a Minecraft iron farm or a creeper gunpowder farm where you check back and have hundreds, if not thousands of resources after like 12 hours. Anyway, with the rest of day 142, I used most of that coal from the Surtling farm to finish smelting all my iron. Once that was completed, I got to work crafting an ancient bark spear, some new iron pants, another huntsman bow, an iron helmet, as well as upgrading both the helmet and pants to bring me from 37 protections up to 51. Unlike last time though, I decided to, keep some iron back instead of immediately burning through it all. That way, I could still partially recover after I inevitably die to wolves again. After day 142, I ended up taking about a month off of Valheim, losing all momentum for the mountain rush that I'd built up for myself. But you know what? You guys can't even tell, because it's just gonna jump cut to the mountains, round 2, Electric Boogaloo. Just kidding, we got a skeleton raid. I think this might have been the biggest raid I've dealt with so far. Just an army of the undead. And if this wasn't a hardcore run, I probably would have tried to take them, but given that they have like 10 archers just waiting to stunlock me back to hell, I'll just keep running. Me too, bro. Me too. Anyway, last time I was out in the mountains, I got skull-fucked by a pack of wolves, so hopefully this time is different. Oh, probably worth mentioning, there's bears now. They look like this. And they're super fucking tanky, at least for the gear I'm using. Both spears and clubs do reduce damage to them, but I'd be willing to bet fire or poison arrows would drop these guys in a similar manner to trolls. The bears, much like their shitty NFL counterpart, also telegraph their moves, so they're super easy to dodge and abuse. Something that I spent most of the rest of the day doing. After killing a bear, you can loot it for bear meat, bear hide, and bear paws, all of which are new items in Valheim at the time of recording. So instead of heading up the mountains, I ran back to base to see just what I could use these items for. Some of these new items include Patterns of the Bear, a necklace that provides 7 armor while boosting health and stamina regeneration, but weakens you against physical damage. Then we've got the Paws of the Bear, which are Wolverine-styled gloves that I'm assuming scale with your punching or fisting skill, shout out Grinder. Here's the stats for those. And finally, you've got the Loincloth of the Bear. It gives pretty similar stats to the Patterns of the Bear necklace. Now the Valheim veterans probably already saw this coming, but all of those items are part of a set, and when you craft all 3, you unlock the Berserk effect. There are a few additional items that came with the update, such as a Heart of the Forest or the Nimble Anklet, but I don't see a huge need for them at the moment, so I'll leave them be for now. Except for this Iron Brooch. After crafting it, I spoke with Bran, who told me that I have this new Adrenaline bar that I have to charge in order to activate the Brooch's ability. I'm sure that'll be tied to combat, but I haven't seen it yet, but I'm sure we'll figure it out eventually. Okay, now back to the mountains. This time, things actually went pretty well. I managed to kill my first wolf, mine my first obsidian node, and even kill a second wolf, all within the span of about 60 seconds. With that though, I didn't want to press my luck too much. I'd learned my lesson from the swamps, so after killing a few more wolves, I retreated back to base for the rest of the night and looked up exactly what I was supposed to be doing in the mountains. And by that, I mean I searched mountain in the Valheim wiki, remembered I had a wishbone, threw that on, and set back off the next morning. Considering each biome has its own dungeon system, my main goal today was to find one of those, and hopefully get a pulse from the wishbone. Instead, I found a single burial chamber from like 4 biomes ago, and nothing else. After taking a look at the map, I came to the conclusion that there's gotta be bigger mountain biomes out there, waiting for me to discover them. As I made my way back to base though, I did get a hit on my wishbone, and managed to dig up this random chest holding some valuables. Since the only mountain I've found so far has been a giant bust, it's time to go find a new one. So on the morning of day 146, I loaded up the longboat with some supplies and set off on yet another adventure. In a perfect world, I can enjoy the views, find a few massive mountain biomes, and tack on a few serpent kills in the process. Now, thankfully for me, mountains are pretty easy to find, especially at distance. You just gotta look for the giant objects in way above the ocean line. The problem is that most of these mountain silhouettes are blocked behind miles of swamp or plains biomes, and I'm not about to run through either of those again if I can help it. As the sun rose on day 147, I noticed yet another mountain in the distance, and began making my way over, which of course means sailing directly into the wind because, again, this is Valheim, and we're not allowed to have the wind at our back, ever. The Black Forest seemed like as good of a spot as any, so after killing a few Grey Dwarfs, I dropped on a temporary portal and returned home to regain my rested state. This is what I want to see when I think of a mountain biome. Now I just gotta find a way up there. Okay, so it ended up taking most of the rest of the day to climb the mountain, so instead of continuing into the night, I mapped out the path and returned home for the rest of the day. Not to mention the fact that I also left my pickaxe behind, so aside from cosplaying as Lewis and Clark, there really isn't a need for me to be up there anyway right now. What better way to kick off my first real day on the new mountain than by killing a new enemy? Drakes are baby ice dragons that shoot snow cones at you. They're pretty weak, at least against the huntsman bow and wooden arrows, and killing them unlocks the recipe to make frost arrows. The only major difficulty these guys pose is the fact that they tend to blend in with the blizzard going on around me, making them hard to spot in until they're about to launch a mouthful of ice into you. Well, that, and the fact that I get so distracted by them that I almost fucked myself by walking directly into a wolf. Wolves definitely still feel like the biggest threat so far. They also blend in during blizzards, and even with upgraded iron and root armor, still deal over 50 damage per hit. Thankfully, I'm getting better at dodging and have been remembering to bring healing potions with me, but even with all of that, I'm still narrowly escaping death, which makes me feel like it's only a matter of time before an absolute shit show unfolds. But not today. Instead, on top of killing a few wolves and drakes, I also managed to find my first silver node and mined that for a bit before heading back home. Only to notice that I never actually harvested any silver. I'm assuming it just fell deeper into the mountain, so I'll need to dig for it a bit, but that'll be my plan for tomorrow. I labeled this marker Valheim Chris Kyles, and I stand by it. Nope. I'll stick to killing wolves, thank you. Looks like the drakes will target the golem, so I think I can just let them slowly whittle away at it, and then swoop in either for the kill or to loot the remains. Okay, maybe I happen to try and fight a golem. Maybe. But there's no way anyone would ever know about it. Anyway, with 2 more drakes sniped out of the sky, I pushed into a cavern and found a dragon egg. The only problem? It weighs 200 fucking pounds. I do know that I need these for the mountain biome boss, so I dropped a bunch of extra gear and scooped the egg up to bring it back to the boat. Not that nature didn't try to stop me in the process, though. While exploring the mountain the following morning, I managed to find and mark the location of the mountain boss, moat. That was the big highlight of the day. I mean, outside of that, it was just more silver mining, pissing off the trolls, and almost dying to more wolves. Speaking of big highlights, I managed to find a frost cave on day 151 and even looted a few crystals before dipping back out to re-gear. The real push came on day 152, where I finally got to explore the cave. Much like burial chambers and crypts, frost caves also have these 3 primary starting points, usually with one dead end, and then the other 2 have like spiraling secondary and tertiary splits that all lead to different avenues. The unique twist to the frost caves, though, is the fact that there's these cultists that spray fire at you, which makes me think there's gotta be some kind of mead that you can make that has flame resistance. After killing them, I pushed into the back rooms to find almost like a worship chamber area with a ton of resources scattered throughout. Overall, a very cool dungeon style to explore, but if I'm being honest, I still think the crypts are my personal favorite. Whoa, a wooden battle axe? Fucking sweet, dude. Just wait until I fuck around and do a max all skills video on Valheim. I'm sure I'll get some use out of them. Anyway, over the next few days, I pretty much did nothing but mine silver. Like, sometimes I broke off and found some onion seeds and frost arrows, but for the most part, my time was spent mining silver. To end the day, I went ahead and planted said onion seeds in my farm plot so I can get started on that. The main goal right now is to find some more dragon eggs, considering I'll need more than one to summon the mountain boss. And by that, I mean more silver and more onions. This is like the Valheim equivalent of that giant sand hill to the beach that all those tourists keep getting stuck on. You know what I'm talking about? It costs like $3,000 to be rescued. Shit's crazy. Well, that was ominous as fuck. I'm fully expecting to die here because a howling cave sounds like it's full of wolves compared to a frost cave, but I'm also too impulsive to not go in and see what's up. If the frost cave was big, this howling cave was massive. There was this giant winding pathway leading deep into the mountains, completely covered in bats. So I took it slow and focused on fighting bats in one-on-one situations, because I 100% see them swarming me and just completely mauling me otherwise. Oh, that's new. So this guy is impossible to beat for me right now. I do practically no damage to him, and while I could dodge and block some of his abilities, I don't trust myself to kill him in such a tight space while only getting off like 2 damage per hit. After a quick Google search, it seems the consensus is that I can come back with full silver armor, but otherwise it should be best avoided. The Howling Cavern itself is a frost cave on steroids. Every enemy has a 1-star rating by default, and then obviously you have the dungeon boss on top of that, so that's good to know. You know what else is good to know? Wolves struggle to climb the stairs in destroyed buildings. Talk about a lifesaver. I will say, I think I speak for everyone when I say fuck blizzards. And Blizzard Entertainment. Both of them. And Thor. You know what? Fuck everybody. I get this is the entire point of them, but how the hell am I supposed to fight what I can't see? Also, what the fuck are Draugr doing up in the mountains? They should be back in Louisiana where they belong. Further up the mountain, I found this random spiraling ruin that reminded me a ton of one of those Skyrim ruins near the Giants. No idea why, but that was stuck in my head despite not touching that game in over half a decade. Oh look, a stone golem. Oh look, another stone golem. You know what? I'll take it. If all I need to do is dodge drakes and stone golems in the middle of a blizzard, I think that's worth it for a second egg. Unlike the other biomes I've survived, the mountain biome allows you to place the eggs one at a time, as opposed to requiring all of them in your inventory to start the sacrifice. Which does make sense, considering they weigh 200 pounds apiece. But it's still nice to know that I don't need to store them somewhere, and instead can just run and place them on the altar as soon as I find them. I'm not gonna lie, I spent all of day 158 watching Chopped and cooking meals and brewing meads. Just a full-on prep day where I cosplayed as a Valheim Gordon Ramsay. Day 159 got off to a hot start when I stumbled upon a third dragon egg while in the middle of a blizzard. That's all the eggs needed to summon moat, but I'm not quite ready for that yet, considering I'm still rocking swamp armor. Thankfully, I've been able to accumulate over 100 silver in my time on the mountains. Now, it's time to get all of that back to base and get started on forging some better armor. Towards the end of the day, I almost managed to kill another serpent, but it decided to dip out with like one arrow away from death, which really sucked. Alright, you know the drill. Fire up the smelters. While waiting for these silver to be melted into bars, I went ahead and harvested my onions, unlocking the onion soup recipe. Instead of making any though, I went ahead and replanted all of the onions to farm out some more seeds. Playing the long game here, folks, if you couldn't tell by the length of the fucking video. With all of my silver bars, I managed to craft a drake helmet, wolf trousers, and a chest piece, which, after upgrading all three, brought me up to 71 armor from 55. So I'll take it. The only downside now is, I never crafted any weapons, and I'm out of silver, so if I die, I just lose everything. Which is a long-winded way of me saying, it's back to the mountains. And while I sail back, I'll answer the questions that all of you are spamming into the comments already. I know the chest piece provides frost resistance, and that's only really useful while in the mountains, and once I go to the plains, it'll suck. But I raise you the fact that a wolf was hitting me for almost 60 damage at times. What do you think moat is gonna do if I don't boost my armor rating? I'm sure on normal it's worth skipping as an armor set, but on hardcore, where any mob can kill you if you miss one dodge or one block, it's not really a chance I'm willing to take. Next up, why am I sailing everywhere when I could just teleport? That one's pretty simple to answer. I just love sailing in Valheim. I know I've said it a ton in this video already, and I'll repeat it constantly, but sailing in Valheim is one of the most satisfying experiences in gaming for me. I love it to death, and I'm gonna utilize it as a primary method of transportation every chance I get, because it's what brings me the most joy, even when I'm sailing directly into the wind. Before fully committing to the silver grind, I wanted to get some more frost resistance mead since I'm running low. To craft those though, I'll need blood bags, which are also used for black soup, and I may or may not have used all of said blood bags on black soup. Alright, let's go back to the swamps. So, for the next 2 days, I did nothing but walk around the swamps, killing leeches, draugrs, skeletons, really anything I could get my hands on. Oh, and remember that Surtling farm I made? Check out the haul from that. Back at base that afternoon, I finally got around to harvesting and replanting all of my onion seeds, before spending the rest of the day brewing some more frost resistance meads for the final battle against moat. Before summoning the new boss, there's a few changes I gotta take care of. For starters, all of these goddamn stone golems need to get moved off of the mountain. The best way I could think to do this was to kite them over the edge to where they'd fall a few meters downhill, where it was steep enough for them to not be able to climb back up. This effectively trapped them on the edge of the mountain and kept me safe from getting punted off the cliff from behind during a boss fight. Next, it's time to build a moat and a wall. Why both? Well, because I need stones to make the natural barrier wall with, and a moat seemed like a cool way to do that. Sue me. That'll happen tomorrow though. For now, I placed a butcher table to upgrade my cauldron to level 3, unlocking a ton of recipes to use all my wolf meat on. One thing I realized while climbing the mountain the next morning though, was that I no longer actually need to use those frost resistance meads now that I'm wearing that wolf chest piece. Anyway, I placed a new portal next to the frost cave to save time climbing up and down every time, and got to work on clearing the area around the summoning altar. For whatever reason, stone golems seem to love the altar, which made my life a living hell. It's bad enough trying to take them on head to head, but when you add the drakes and the wolves, it's borderline impossible. To add insult to injury, when you do finally kill one of these things, it drops nothing. Stones and crystals. No cool resources to build new armor with, no useful items for tools, just rocks and crystals. Or minerals, whatever you want to call them. And for the icing on the cake, I brought a cultivator instead of a hoe. God damn it. So, after moving the Moder portal up the mountain even more, I headed back to the temporary portal by my boat and returned home to swap out the cultivator. While originally I thought this was gonna be an awesome idea, in reality, I gave up after one afternoon. I don't know if it was fighting another stone golem and drake, or if it was due to me staring down another blizzard, but at this point, I just wanted to get the fight over with. So, with that mindset, I teleported back to base, crafted a new spear, grabbed a stack of poison arrows, and finally harvested my onions. With said onions, I cooked some wolf skewers and onion soup, providing me with some of the strongest meals I've had so far, second only to serpent stew. With that, it's time to take on Moder. From what I can tell, it's got two alternating phases. The first is while it's flying around. He's got one move up here where he shoots a bunch of ice shards out of its mouth at you, similar to how a drake would. It's when Moder lands that I become terrified, because not only can it swipe with the range of a stone golem that deals over 80 damage after blocking it with a shield, but it can also apply freeze damage to you, which does tick damage while slowing you down. Just a brutal combo that makes me want to fall back on my bow for this fight. As the fight continued into the next morning, I found myself down to just one weapon, my abyssal spear that I'd been rocking with for most of my time in the mountain. But the fight didn't end here. In fact, This was the longest boss battle I've taken part in to date, and if I'm being real, it made me want to put this game down and never touch it again. This was not only not an enjoyable fight for me, but the sheer length of it was so draining that I actually contemplated shelving this video for another month over it. I realize that sounds a bit dramatic, but that's really just how I felt. Fighting bosses is the primary goal of this playthrough, but when it's taking me over a full real-life hour to fight the 4th boss in the game, that would mean I'm on pace for over 2-hour boss fights by the Mistlands, and I'm really starting to dread that. To make everything worse, when I finally landed the kill on Moder, my fucking OBS was paused. So after all of that pain and suffering, there doesn't even get to be a catharsis moment of me sending a spear through its heart. So here's my interpretation of how that went down. The mountain peak is entirely destroyed, portal included, so to calm myself down a bit and reset, I walked back to my longboat and sailed my tired ass back to base. Only to be immediately raided by a horde of Howlings from the plains. Placing Moder's trophy on the sacrificial stone allows me to take on a new special ability. I'll probably still rock bone mass for the resistance buffs, but having an extra 300 carrying capacity would be massive for mining run. Speaking of mining runs, I'd like to get some more silver before heading to the plains. Mainly because this is like the first biome I've completed without really dying all that much, which means I'm overdue to get steamrolled in the plains by little green guys and King Kong-sized mosquitoes. Before heading back though, I used those 10 blue orb things to place an artisan table, which unlocked a shit ton of new craftables, such as a blast furnace, windmill, and spinning wheel. I don't really have the space to build all that though, and the more time I spent staring at the outline of my base, the more I felt the need to make some drastic changes. So on the morning of day 171, I stepped outside, determined to create a forever home. One that would carry me through the remaining biomes and serve as a true safe house for the rest of my playthrough. The best way to do that? Well, it's simple. There are players like Snazzy Games who are far more adept and well versed in Valheim than me. So, I watched his video on optimal base defenses. I'll link it below so you can all watch for yourselves, but he goes pretty in depth over spawn prevention, ranges for each item, and how to build solid base defenses to prevent future raids from destroying your land, which is my goal for a new build. For starters, I found a nice piece of land that I can build my new compound on. It's not too far away from the original base, but I'd consider it to be a far safer location, especially considering I can build a dock on the water and wall in the rest. Next, I got started flattening out the land to create a massive open area. This continued well into day 172 and even 173, with some small breaks sprinkled in to break up all the boulders or chop down some of the bushes and trees around the perimeter. Alright, so far so good. I'm gonna flatten all this out. This was arguably the longest process of the build, to be honest. To help speed it up though, I built a portal over here so that I could warp back to the forge for repairs instead of taking 5 minutes to sprint back and forth each time. Even then, because the meadows were so uneven, this still took several days of smacking the dirt before I managed to get the land worked into something manageable for a settlement. I basically turned Valheim into Holes, the game. Except instead of buried treasure, I just got carpal tunnel.
I'm tired of this, Grandpa! That's too damn bad!
Like a scene straight out of fucking Zoolander. It would take until the rest of day 178 to even mine an outline of the perimeter, which means it's finally time to start squaring out the land. Day 181, I felt the ground shake and turned around to see 2 trolls making their way over to me. Normally, not a problem, but given the fact that I'm pounding 3 stamina foods, 1 fuck up here means death, and I'm not ready to meet the Angel of Death today. Alright, back to digging. Never mind. Wait, okay. Back to digging for real this time. Finally, after 11 days of slapping the ground with a pickaxe, I can start flattening the land again. This both metaphorically and literally paved the way for me to get started on the southern border on day 183. So here's how this is gonna work. Over the past 11 days, I've collected massive piles of rocks and wood. With all of those rocks, I get to walk the perimeter and drastically raise the wall lining. But before I do that, I grabbed a few stacks of wood and placed workbenches throughout my land to prevent new mobs from spawning. I feel like this may seem a bit over the top, especially because there hasn't been a chance to show off the build yet. Thankfully, the game felt the same way, because while I was building out the land wall, a swamp raid triggered. This is how that went. It's not complete yet, but it's nice to see it actually working with what I have done so far. Okay, this next bit is partially because I ran out of stones for the land wall, and partially because I just think it would be cool, but I'm adding a moat to the exterior portion of the wall. That way, any mobs will fall directly into it, making it practically impossible to even accidentally launch themselves up the wall. In a perfect world, even the trolls get stuck down here and I can just build a ramp up to the walls and gun them down from safety. The fact that water from the ocean is pooling into the moat was just an added benefit. It would take until day 189 to fully wrap up not just the moat, but the land wall as well. This is the finished product. With the perimeter completed, I can finally get started on building, the actual base. Oh, you forgot that was the entire point of the wall? Yeah, me too, honestly. It might have only been a few minutes for you, but the wall and moat alone took about 12 hours to build out, which is wild to hear myself say that out loud. For starters, I laid the foundation for a throne room, only to immediately gut it after realizing I preferred the stone foundation over wood. Considering I just spent thousands of stones building up the wall, back to mining. I'm assuming I'm just gonna need a few thousand stone for all of the building I want to get done, so I'll see you in a few days when I've restocked my supply. Okay, for the last 6 days, I've done nothing but smack rocks and pile them up over here. I think it's finally about time to get to building, starting with a throne room. Now I know I've mentioned it a few times before, but I suck at building in survival games in general. It's not even that I don't enjoy it, I'm just ass at it, as should be obvious by now. Even in games like Minecraft, I tend to just look up a video of how to make a cozy looking base and follow that layout to a T. But with Valheim, I'm really trying to stay away from stuff like that and avoid any inspiration from outside users, at least in terms of base building. My hope is that by the end of this entire playthrough, I'll have started breaking through with my terrible architectural flaws and can hopefully walk away with some creative ideas that I can be proud to say I built. And that all starts with this giant rectangle of dirt in front of me. The primary goal of the throne room is to provide the largest comfort boost that I can get away with, while also looking serviceable for an actual throne room. So to start, I laid a stone foundation with what I'm hoping to use as an open hallway into the room. The throne room itself doesn't need to be huge, but I do like the idea of having a stairway up to it. That was the outline after one day and several hundred stones. To try and tie the room together a bit more, I added both the stone throne and raven throne to the top of the stairs, along with a hearth on each side that would be lit simultaneously. I'd like to take a page out of Randy Marsh's book and go for a more open concept here. So instead of giant stone walls, I think I want to make more like massive pillars in the middle, with windows in between the pillars and a walkway out to explore the rest of the village that will all come in time. Sure, it almost killed me to put them up, but I think they'll look really nice when the build's completed. That being said, no idea what I want to do for a ceiling, or if they're almost too high up. Might actually end up bringing them down a layer or two. I just really didn't want it to be eye level when I'm sitting down. To end the day, I walled the back of the thrones in and started building those up a tad just to make the room feel more like a room and less like a giant shit show. Now there aren't actual glass panels to use for windows, but I do have the option to build crystal walls using crystals I've obtained while out in the mountains. It's definitely not enough to make entire 10 tile high windows out of, but I think they'll look really nice once I have enough. That being said, that's a lot of crystals to farm, and iron bars also get the job done. And if you're asking yourself, did he really just spend like 5 minutes running over here with 10 iron just to see what iron bars would look like, only to find out I need a forge to place them, making them utterly useless? You bet your sweet fucking bippy I did. In the end, I decided to go with the crystal glass because I think it'll look nicer when the building is lit up. I'll just have to figure something out for a pathway out to each side, unless I scrap that idea and do a pathway around the throne room, which might look better once the village is more fleshed out. For the fourth day of work on the throne, I focused on the back portion, mainly because that was the toughest spot for me to clean up. This is what I ended up with. It's not amazing, but I think it gets the job done nonetheless. By the time the sun set, I'd managed to even out all of the walls and stack up the actual throne portion, so all that's left to do is add the crystal walls and figure out a way to roof this bad boy in. And grab more stones because that entire stockpile went into this shell. But considering I'm out of stone, I think it's time to hit the road again and see what the plains is really all about. So, heading into day 200, I swapped out my best gear for some iron greaves and a helmet, and even left my best bow and fang spear behind in favor of my bark spear before heading into the plains. My mindset here was to essentially die, and the same way I did in the mountains. But this time, instead of being caught off guard, I could try and learn when to dodge some of the enemies, see how much damage I can get away with objectively weaker weapons, and take stock of how much damage I can take before being killed. That way, I can go back to the mountains, mine some more resources to upgrade my gear, and then re-engage the mobs in the plains with a bit more confidence. With that plan in place, I took the portal back to Hildir's camp and made my way into the plains. Well, that came quicker than expected.
That's what she said.
Good to know that the green goblin fuckers can light you on fire. This will never not be depressing. But you know what? Skills can be regained. And that's why I didn't want to bring my best armor. At least the mobs don't seem to tank much damage. I knew the little green guys were relatively weak, but it's nice to know that the mosquitoes from hell can be one-shot as well. It seems like more than anything, I really just need more silver. I'll have to find a way to deal with being lit on fire, but I also can't imagine that every goblin will be running around with a torch. Seems more like a 1 in 10 chance if anything, so I'll worry about that last. Until then, it's back to the mountains. While making some more meals, I noticed a new recipe that I must have just missed before. Ice cream costs 3 Greydwarf eyes and 1 freeze gland, which I can farm from killing drakes, and provides better health and stamina than onion soup. No idea how good these are, but the fact that I can hold 50 of them at a time makes me want to use them. As always, I know I could just teleport back, but I like sailing, so I'm going to keep doing it. This also gives me a chance to kill another serpent or 2 and make some more meals with the meat, since I'm down to just 1 stew, and I'm going to need more for the remaining boss battles. God, I can't wait to build a nice little port here and be able to dock the boat right off the village. This is going to look so cool when it's completed. I can't remember the last time I killed a serpent. This is huge for me. On top of that, I think there might be another. Alright, maybe it was just the fish, but still, 6 serpent meat out of that fight was a blessing. To think I could rename my boat Evergiven and just pull off the best sailing fiasco Valheim has ever seen. Shit, maybe I gotta start sailing through the canal more often, because I just landed 2 serpents for the first time, I think ever in this playthrough. So I might have fucked up. I forgot to change the portal name back, and there aren't any unnamed portals sitting around, meaning I just sailed all the way out here for nothing. Well, not nothing on account of the 13 serpent meat in storage, but I'm gonna have to sail home, change the portal name, then sail all the way back here again. Okay, at the very least, this was a fantastic outing for hunting serpents. Now to just find a way to reach the bottom of the ocean to collect all the scales I've had to leave behind. You know what? I take it all back. This entire trip was worth it and totally 100% calculated and planned. This was always meant to be a giant serpent hunt and not at all unintentional. Over the course of my 2 days sailing journey, I managed to haul in over 20 serpent meat. It was actually so much serpent meat that I had to leave some behind in the boat and make multiple trips. Of course though, as soon as I made it back to base and began cooking the meat, another raid triggered. This time, we've got bats. Probably one of the easier raids overall, and so far, it's the only raid that I don't have protections for in the new base location. That being said, it's certainly the easiest raid I've ever had, considering I can one-shot all of the bats, and they only hit for like 3 to 6 HP. With the raid quelled, it was right back to cooking up all the meat, and then turning that cooked meat into over 25 serpent stews to help me get through the plains. Heading into day 203, I crafted a portal to the mountains before hopping back in the longboat in the hopes of taking down a few more serpents en route to the mountain. Alright, no serpents this time, but I did find a troll and a bear hanging out on the shoreline. Oh, 1-star bear. Great. Note to self, don't go back through that portal for a day or two. This was probably one of the stupider things I've done in this playthrough, but hey, it worked out. Kinda. I mean, I'm still alive. So is the bear, but I don't know, I feel like I can whittle him down from the water. The plan here is relatively simple. Grab poison arrows, trigger the bear, then hide on the boat. But that proved to be much easier said than done, considering the bear would just give up and run away after a few seconds, leaving me to try and sail back to shore, hop out, grab aggro, and repeat the process. I feel like the fact that a 1-star bear is on the same level as an early game boss means that I'm drastically weaker than I'm supposed to be here. And granted, some of that is 100% due to all of my skill levels being deleted, but at some point, it's also gotta be on the gear as well. I don't know, this entire fight just made me more anxious to head into the plains. Well, it's been like 30 days, but it's good to be back. One thing I've noticed with silver is that, just like with copper, it feels like most of the node is hidden even deeper beneath the snow and stone, making each node feel massive compared to grabbing 10 or 15 silver from it. With that in mind, I made a point to really take my time at each node, which also gave me the ability to continue stockpiling stone again for more base building projects at a later date. And so, for the next several days, I did nothing but mine silver, kill drakes, and dodge wolves. This continued until day 210, at which point, as the sun set, I hopped back in my longboat and began the journey home, carrying close to 150 silver. Upon reaching the OG base, I started smelting the silver into bars, while making continuous runs to and from the boat to carry everything back to storage. With that silver, I crafted a silver shield, giving me a substantial upgrade over the iron bandage shield that I've been rocking for 2 biomes now. I also went ahead and crafted a silver sword that matches the Fang Spear in terms of pierce damage, while also doing 30 spirit damage, which I'm entirely foreign to, so I'm excited to see how that plays out in combat. This inevitably played into the next day, which really was just a massive prep day for the plains. On top of the new sword and shield, I got a whole new Pokédex to explore. Oh, wait, sorry, wrong game. I built this big-ass blast furnace that unlocked the ability for me to smelt some of that black scrap metal I'd collected from the Fewlings. Grabbing the bars unlocked the recipe for some new shields, making me feel like I just wasted all of my silver on that shield, but fuck it. I also need copper to craft pots and pans for another cauldron upgrade, and now I gotta go find some. So instead of that, I just crafted a black metal shield, providing another upgrade over the silver shield, with my plan being to just keep the silver one in storage so that when I die, I can just easily swap it in and keep things moving. To cap off a day of prep work, I upgraded my armor to tier 4, boosting my rating to 81. When it comes to food, I'm going in with some ice cream for my stamina food of choice, and then sausages and wolf skewers for my health food. I know I've got a shit ton of serpent stews, but I'm saving those for dungeons or boss fights for now. At least until I can stock a bit more or unlock some better foods that I'm sure I'll come across in the next biome. Alright, it's time to explore the plains. After killing some viewlings and deathsquitos, I harvested a few cloudberries that can be used to craft some stamina potions. I know the root harness is a better option against the deathsquitos since they provide pierce damage resistance, but my hope is that I can keep my health high enough to offset the 40 plus damage they deal per bite in order to keep my armor rating high enough to take on feelings without getting overly stressed. Especially when I saw that blocking a sting only hit me with 6 damage. Up ahead, I came across my first village, which, to my knowledge, are the plains versions of dungeons, so I was anxious to see how they held up. This is where I really fell back on the Huntsman bow. For those who don't know, the Huntsman bow, while dealing less damage than some of the later versions, is the best bow in the game for my specific playstyle. Why? Well, it has the smallest range to trigger nearby enemies, making it the perfect stealth option, as well as a fantastic way to single out specific targets from groups of enemies. That being said, I really didn't want to overstay my welcome and get myself killed, so instead of pushing in, I opted to head back to base for the night and resume in the morning. During the night, I combined honey, yellow mushrooms, and some cloudberries to begin fermenting medium stamina potions. Day 214 saw me back in the plains for another day of attempting to raid a village. Right off the bat, the biggest change between today and yesterday was simply the fog. I thought blizzards were going to be the worst of the visual debuffs, but this might actually be worse when you consider the fact that mosquitoes from hell hit me for a third of my health. Aside from that, though, I have a new approach I'd like to bring to the plains straight out of the mountains, and that is build a giant dirt patch so that I'm out of reach of the berserkers that I'm sure can easily one-shot me, and then just pick away at them with poison arrows. Well, until they decide to just run away. Welcome back. With the first berserker dead, I began pushing into the village, only to immediately retreat back to the hill until the grunts had been dealt with. After pushing back into town again, I quickly found a guard tower and posted up on top of it in order to whittle away the remaining berserkers. Until they walked away from me again, at which point I jumped down, killed a few more grunts, realized the berserkers saw me, and ran away, just narrowly escaping death by rebuilding a workbench and climbing up to height before the berserkers could wreck me. Okay, day 3, let's get after it. So on top of the regular grunts, the torch-bearing grunts, and the berserkers, there's also pyromaniac shamans who really fuck up my go-to strat of standing above everyone else. And as a result, it's time to run.
Fun fact, between voicing days 215 and 216, I moved, and got bronchitis again, which is why I sound like I've been chain-smoking cowboy killers for 20 years. Anyway, back to the Heim of Val. On the bright side, returning the next morning allowed me to catch both shamans off guard and snipe them in one shot each, before finally clearing out the remaining feelings. While looting the chests around the camp, I found some barley, which unlocked the recipe for fire resistance meads, and now my life is complete. Now to figure out how to farm barley. By the time I'd liberated the village, I'd managed to loot almost 40 black metal scrap, some leather hides, a whole bunch of coins, and obviously the barley. I chose to leave it all in a nearby chest for now, so that when I wanted to, I could just sail my longboat over, dock it near the village, and haul it all back home. Anyway, back to exploring. The plains share a border with a black forest, which allowed me to kill another bear fairly easily, find this beautiful pond, and even a second village next to this thing. You know, a lot of people would say this is way too big. The average rock statue tower things are perfectly fine. I'd even say most people prefer the average sized ones. Like, this is just too much. What are you even supposed to do with it all? Poorly written dick jokes aside, I did learn that barley can be planted as is back at the OG base. Check out these things. Hildir's got a couple hanging out around her camp, but these are like the feral version, and the big goal today is to kill one. Don't ask why they're stuck, I'm just going with it. Oh. Okay then. Well, when one finally did make its way over to me, it just kind of stood around and let me pump it full of poison arrows until finally... Killing these bad boys drops Locke's meat and pelts that I'm assuming can be tanned into hides for armor. But why stop at one? If the other two are just stuck walking in place, it'd be silly to not keep farming them, right? Well, turns out, they weren't taking damage until aggroed onto me, and this one wasn't fucking around. But as I was dodging a Lox while simultaneously fighting a Death Skeeto, I couldn't help but think back to early on in my Valheim grind, where I couldn't be bothered to dodge a Grey Dwarf. Not to glaze myself or anything, but I do think it's cool to look back to when I first started playing Valheim and see how far I've come, even in this playthrough alone, being scared to fight trolls, but now being confident enough to fight a Lox without knowing how much damage it can deal to me. I'm sure I still have a lot to learn in terms of combat and game mechanics and all that fun stuff, but I'm happy with the progress I've made so far, especially with this being my second playthrough ever and first time in the plains. Case in point, I planted all that barley just to find out it can't grow in this environment. A quick Google search tells me that barley can only be grown in the plains, so I'll have to figure something out for that. Cooking the lox meat works the same as deer or wolf meat, where I can eat it, but I'm sure once I upgrade the cauldron again, it'll provide some better recipes for me to use it on. Before calling it on the day though, I hit up the trader and purchased that weight belt for like the third time, along with some more Ymir flesh and a fishing pole that I'm excited to try out. Instead of heading back to the plains on day 218, I found myself in the dark forest mining some more copper like the good old days. And this time, I've got a wagon, so all of you sitting there collectively losing your shit over me not using one for the last, 200 days or so, can finally breathe a sigh of relief. By the end of the day, with an additional 30 copper to mess around with, I crafted some pots and pans, boosting my cauldron to level 4. Heading into day 219, I used some of those needles from the Death Skeetos and crafted a full set of needle arrows. They're a solid step up from obsidian arrows, providing 10 more pierce damage and an additional 5 knockback up to 15. Not that they'll do all that much today, considering it's a massive thunderstorm and I'm not about to raid a fueling village in this weather. So instead of doing, anything productive, I looked into the lox pelt some more and learned that I can craft a rug, a bracelet, and a cape with them. Literally none of that will help me in the plains currently, so we'll just hang on to it for now, I guess. Of course, as soon as the rain cleared up, I took a portal back to Hildir to hit up the plains yet again, only to walk directly into a Surtling raid. So naturally, I caught up with Hildir while an army of flame-on wannabes duked it out with a wild lox. Alright, raid's over. Time to pull off one of my own. This went about par for the course. I killed maybe half a dozen fuelings pretty easily before accidentally pulling a small patrol over, getting ambushed by a Death Skeeto, and then running for my life. Also, shout out Grey Dwarfs for pulling the greatest side swap since the elites in Halo 2. The raid resumed back on day 220, with me reusing the tried and true tactic of building a giant hill and firing arrows into the crowd. By the time I'd called it quits for the day, I'd managed to kill 3 berserkers and another 5 or 6 feelings, setting the stage for me to finish off my second camp tomorrow. In reality, it would take 3 more days to clear my second village, earning me dozens of metal, some more barley, and a bunch of other shit, including a new resource, flax. If I've learned anything from 20 years of on and off RuneScape, it's that flax can be used on a spinning wheel for thread, so I'm excited to try that out back home. There's a shit ton of metal here as well, that I don't really have the capacity to carry. So instead, I spent a few minutes moving it over to the other village I'd raided like a week or so ago. The flax will have to wait though. Assuming it's gonna work the same as barley for farming, I opted to build out a small plot of farmable land in the plains next to Hildir, and plant all of my barley and flax there instead. To give the barley and flax a few days to grow, I figured now would be a great time to sail on over and collect all that metal. So, how about those local sports teams? Think the Giants are gonna start Jameis? Think the acrylic assassin in Chicago is gonna be the first Bears QP to throw for 4,000 yards in a season? Or is he too busy painting his nails to match his cleats? Will Jerry Jones win a Super Bowl before he dies? Or do you think he's gonna watch Micah Parsons pick off Dak Prescott in the wild card round and have a heart attack? I'm gonna be honest here. One of my buddies is a diehard Bears fan and swears by Caleb Williams, and this entire bit here was just included so that when he watches this video, this part's gonna pop up and he's gonna be like, what the fuck? And it's just gonna be great. I'm not gonna tell him about it, but I will update a comment when he does, because I think it'll be hilarious. Alright, see you in a little bit. While it wasn't as great of a run as I had near the mountains, I did manage to tack on another Serpent kill, so that was nice. By the evening of day 226, I was back at my OG base, making runs to begin smelting down all of that black metal scrap that I'd managed to bring back through 2 villages. It should go without saying, but given that I only have 1 blast furnace, it's obviously gonna take some time to burn through 150 scrap metal. So while waiting for stacks to finish smelting, I got to work rebuilding my wood supply. Nothing fancy, nothing entertaining, but it's gotta be done. This inevitably spilled into day 228, but instead of chopping trees, I was finally able to harvest some of that barley and flax that I had planted a few days ago. The barley obviously can't be used in the spinning wheel, but tossing in the flax allows it to process into linen thread, which, to my knowledge, is used for every fucking recipe in the plains for some reason. Like every tool, every weapon, the full armor set, it just all revolves around flax, meaning I've got to get back to farming. Much like the flax and spinning wheel, building a windmill allows me to add barley to be processed into flour. With said flour, I can make like 5 more meals that will obviously be needed for the boss fight. Blood pudding seems like the obvious stamina meal, but then you've got fish wraps that give 70 health, which is better than a wolf skewer, but just below serpent stew. Over at the food prep table, I can make bread dough and unbaked lox pies that I'm assuming I'll need to craft that stone oven to bake. By day 229, I was pretty much caught up on everything aside from smelting metal. So instead of sitting around the base for another day, I made the trek back to the plains to continue exploring some more. I didn't really have a goal in mind for the day, aside from maybe uncovering the location of the next boss. But even then, I didn't really have any direction as to how to find that. I just figured that villages held some importance to it all. Sadly, the initial plot of land that I'd been exploring is blocked by a pretty long stretch of black forest. But on the other side of that forest is more plains. Only took like half the fucking day to get over here, but still. While this side did bring some pretty amazing views and a few more feelings to snipe, I ultimately ended the day in the exact same position as I began in. At this point, I was really only left with one option: to set out yet again in search of another plains biome. Hopefully one that has a bit more to it than 2 small villages for me to raid. And after 2 full days of sailing, I finally came across another biome worthy of checking out, so I docked the longboat, crafted a portal, and made plans to come back in the morning. Alright, time to go raid a 3rd village. You know what, it would be easier and probably a bit cooler to just show you how that went, so here you go. Wasn't until day 233 that I came across another new enemy, tar. You heard that right, just a big old blob of tar. Not only does it slow you down, but it also poisons you, which is just dandy. And to top it all off, the only recipes you get with tar are for new build pieces that I'm not even planning on using. You know what? Never mind. All I need to do is get one of these and start up a stream and I'll be on the front page of Twitch in no time. So after 2 full days of fighting, I'm still exactly where I was like 15 days ago. I still have no clue where the boss is. I don't know what items I need to loot to summon said boss or any of that. I do have some tar though, so I guess that's a win, maybe. But all of this would change on day 234. While out exploring, I found an outpost being guarded by some Gringot wannabes. After killing them though, I broke into the outpost to find a totem that says it can channel the ancient power of Yagluth, the 5th boss in Valheim. Now I just gotta find out where to summon him from and we'll be golden. Not sure if they're exclusively tied to outposts, but I'll keep my eye out for more of them on my travels. With the second plains biome fully explored, I packed up the portal and set sail yet again in search of another biome to destroy. Thankfully, I found another one right across the water and was able to set up a portal as the sun set, allowing me to continue the following morning. Another day, another village raid. Guys, after thousands of hours in Project Zomboid, I've finally mastered the art of stun locking. This must have struck a chord with the little green guys, considering they sent a roided up, off-colored 2-star one after me. Again, not to glaze myself too much, but I did appreciate looking back on this and being like, oh yeah, I can kite these guys into the water, jump on the boat, separate the trio, and then pick them off one at a time. It's not a move I would have pulled off in previous biomes, and I credit that to logging some serious hours in Valheim for this playthrough. And I pulled that move off not once, but twice on some even more dangerous 1-star enemies along with these same 2-star. I don't know what it is about this specific village, but in lieu of berserkers, they seem to just be completely mething out their fuelings because they're all 1 or 2 stars, and I just can't compete. I'm starting to lose faith in the villages, to be honest. All that seems to be here are a shit ton of fuelings and some barley. Glad to see Travis Kelce's massive hog in the game. The devs must be Swiftie fans. On day 238, I got a little lucky and found another outpost. The downside? It's right next to a village that's no doubt housing a ton of fuelings and berserkers. This is only further solidifying my belief that I need to just be targeting outposts, because how am I 2 for 2 on these, but haven't found a single totem in like 5 villages? It's not like that'll stop me from fucking with the berserkers though, it's just really a bit annoying. I've been dicking around in the plains for like 30 days now. You're telling me that in all of that time, all of the berserkers I've killed, out of that entire grouping, they've all had the ability to drop fueling totems? But this is the first one? Okay, I looked it up and allegedly they have like a 5% drop rate. I know this is a self-made problem, but I really do wish there was a way to increase drop rates for items at higher combat difficulty. I'm sure on normal mode this isn't that much of an issue, but on hardcore, where I might only kill like 2 berserkers in a day, it's gonna take forever to even obtain totems. And I still don't even know how many I need. Is it 3, 5, 10, 50? Regardless, at least it's good to know that I can farm berserkers instead of relying purely on outposts. Is it just me, or are the villages empty? Like, I don't know, it just feels like there should be more here. There's shells of a cool area, but it just feels vacant, and not in the sense that I just slaughtered the inhabitants, but in the all of these buildings are void and kind of hollow way. Does that make sense? I don't know, I feel like I'm bitching and rambling, but also, the fuck is this? Feeling Stonehenge? There's 3 berserkers here guarding a chest, and I'm gonna say it, shout out Tarblobs. Really coming in clutch here. All of that for a silver necklace. Huh. Well, on the bright side, never gonna have to worry about black scrap metal again, right? Should probably run this back home real quick and get started on smelting it all into bars. Paying no attention to the 3 health I have left. I got the boat stuck and almost got one tap by a troll. While waiting on most of that metal to convert to bars, I went ahead and harvested my barley and flax again. See, over the past several days, I've been popping in from time to time and replanting a bunch of it since I need a shit ton for most of the recipes here. And for the most part, it's been working out nicely. And now, we play the waiting game. And while waiting, it's time to check out those stone ovens. With said stone ovens, I can now bake those lox pies. And while those bake, the fish I've caught over the course of the playthrough can be turned into fish wraps, which give very similar stats to the lox pies. These will all come in handy later on, as I'm planning to just go triple health for the boss fight, because stamina doesn't really seem to be doing all that much for me when all these bosses have like 8 times the normal health. For now, my main focus is back on finding the boss. Let's get that done first, right? And what better way to discover the boss's location than by fighting a plethora of random mobs? Are those what I think they are? Okay, I'm about to do the dumbest fucking thing. With these 2 totems, I'm now up to 5, and a quick Google search tells me that's all I need to summon Yagluth, the boss of the plains. So, really, for real this time, guys, all that's left to do now is find the fucking guy. So on day 243, I hopped into the longboat once again in search of another plains biome that could be used to hopefully uncover the hidden location of Yagluth. If I could just get this as my screensaver, it would make my day. 244 days and like 4 plains biomes in, time to find a boss altar. Well, what the fuck? How is it this hard to find a spawn altar? I feel like every other biome I found an altar within a few days of being in there. Like, the Black Forest, the mountains, for God's sake, was like 2 days. What is happening? Am I being punked? How have I not come across a single altar in like 30 days of exploring? Valheim vets, is this just the normal vibe, or am I having an out-of-body experience? Originally, I'd planned to start the boss fight today, but here we are, in the middle of the ocean, looking for an altar that I'm like 15% sure doesn't exist. Shit, I traveled so far in search of the altar, I found the fucking Mistlands first. By day 248, I was so fed up, I just sat in the longboat and sailed the coastlines looking for any semblance of an altar. And such was my life for the next several days. Sailing, staring into the plains, hoping to find a little glowing slab or an altar in the distance, only to be let down time and time again. Thank you all so much for watching. Originally, I had planned to end this video with the boss battle against Yagluth, setting up the final 250 days to be the Mistlands and Ashlands, but clearly that didn't happen. I have no idea why it's been so impossibly hard to find the altar, but judging from everything I've read so far, it seems that I'm not the only one having this issue. Thanks again to Factor for sponsoring this video, and a very special thank you to all the YouTube members, Twitch subs, and Patreon supporters who've continued to support me over the years. You guys are the best. I know this video took a very long time to make, so apologies for that. I'm all moved in now, so the final installment shouldn't take 4 months to produce like this one did. So, I'll see you all in December. Until then, I appreciate you all. Go call a loved one, and thanks for stopping by.